Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. Time passed. It was a period of peace, and more than 6 trillion eras had gone by silently. Inside Luo Feng's miniature universe, there was a blue sky and white clouds. Flying beasts and animals were everywhere. There were rolling hills with water flowing down from the hilltops. A white-caped man sat on a mountain. It was Luo Feng. A simple but giant guard stood beside him. The guard looked into the distance. A teenager was teleporting toward him from several light years away. The silver-haired teen showed up on the mountainside. He then stepped on the space and went to the peak of the mountain. The silver-haired teen said, "Father God. Shimo, what's been happening lately?" Luo Feng looked lovingly at the silver-haired teenager. Shimo was exceptional. Luo Feng cared for him almost as much as he cared for his own son. Shimo was one of the first life forms that Luo Feng created, so he was technically Luo Feng's own son. Luo Feng had created many races, and he had combined them with remote ocean. More than 10 billion eras after the crisis of the sector beasts, the first true god had been born from the remote ocean line, and it had been Shimo. There were 9 different powers in the human race, and each power had lots of true gods. The 3 powers that were the strongest were the Virtual Universe Company, the Huge Axe Dojo, and Milky Way Kingdom. Milky Way Kingdom centered around the Earthlings, the remote ocean line, and the many other great beings who had joined. Luo Feng was the supreme leader of the kingdom. But that was only on the surface. In reality, Milky Way Kingdom was mainly led by Shimo. To Luo Feng, the entire human race was influenced by him, so there was no need for him to have any separated powers. Shimo had once told him, "Father God, the Earthlings and the remote ocean line don't have enough say in the senior meetings in the human race." And so, with Luo Feng's permission, Milky Way Kingdom had been established. Luo Feng knew that the Earthlings had been created by Sitting Mountain Guest, and from them, many talents had been born. They were destined to be a powerful line. As for the remote ocean line, it was a race he had created while attempting to pursue the perfection of the life structure. Each had its own advantages. They also had great potential. Both lines were powerful, yet they didn't have enough say, so many great beings were discontent. However, the true gods on Luo Feng's side were limited to Luo Feng, Hong, and Fire Dom. Luo Feng was too superior and aloof, Hong was too detached from the power, and as for Fire Dome, he was neither an Earthling nor from the remote ocean line, so he wasn't influential enough. After Shimo had become a true god, many universe masters had gathered under him, treating him as their leader. Everything went smoothly. Representing Luo Feng, they had established Milky Way Kingdom, so they could have a great say, thus improving their status in the human race. They had to fight for it. The humans were far too powerful now. After more than 6 trillion eras, there were 98 true gods in the human race, and 1,222 universe masters. The humans were fighting for various resources, as well as authority. "Father God," said Shimo respectfully. Another person became a universe master in Milky Way Kingdom. Luo Feng nodded. He didn't care much about someone becoming a universe master. "Brother Na-ku has been improving very quickly," said Shimo. "If given enough time, he'll become a universe master." Na-ku had been the leading teenager in Blood River World when he had still been weak. Luo Feng was a superior being within the human race now, but he still paid attention to the development of Blood River World, including the growth of Na-ku. He had even helped him 3 times in secret, though Na-ku hadn't noticed. In Luo Feng's mind, if Na-ku couldn't become an emperor on his own, there was no need to guide him. Only if he could become an emperor would he be valuable. Although Luo Feng had helped him 3 times in secret before, Ku was mainly on his own. He had been through a lot, and after billions of years, he had finally become an emperor. When Ku had become an emperor, Luo Feng had traveled to Blood River World in the flesh, and had admitted him as his disciple. Luo Feng would provide him with guidance once in a while Shimo was responsible for most of the job. Although Ku has reached the limit of universe nights, Shimo said, shaking his head, he might not have enough time to become a universe master in this universe era. Luo Feng frowned. It's time. In accordance with your order, I've been keeping my eyes on the original universe, said Shimo respectfully. Now, everything that's happening in the original universe means that the original universe has reached the end. Soon, it'll be destroyed. Everything. Luo Feng looked at Shimo. Shimo nodded. In many star domains, lots of stars have been destroyed. It's normal for a star to meet its end, but it has never before happened on such a large scale. Besides, the probability of a talent being born is declining. Shimo had outlined every situation. Finally, it's going to be destroyed. Luo Feng suddenly stood up. He'd been waiting for this for a long time. He had reached the level of a top-tier, true god of void space, while fighting the sector beasts. He had been able to create top-tier level 12 techniques before. After more than 6 trillion eras, he'd been talking with Morosa a lot, and Morosa kept showing him the destruction origin, allowing him to comprehend it. Luo Feng had made quite a few improvements. However, he couldn't compare to Morosa. He was already at the level of limit true gods of void space. Yet Morosa advanced so quickly that Luo Feng was jealous. It had already been as powerful as a true god of void space when it first entered its growth period, and now, after more than 6 trillion eras, Morosa had reached the level of an eternal true god. Master, said the guard standing to the side, also excited. Luo Feng took a look at the guard. The guard was Morosa. I've been waiting for this moment for so long. Luo Feng smiled. Father God. Shimo was dazed. Little did he know was that the original mind had made a promise to Luo Feng. A promise that he could comprehend the destruction of the original universe. It was a supreme opportunity. However, I need to go to one place beforehand. Luo Feng looked out into space. You don't need to follow. Luo Feng took a step and disappeared. Shimo and that guard gave each other a look. In a silent, deserted star domain where no life forms could be born, Luo Feng appeared. It's been a long time, whispered Luo Feng. He had been nothing but a bewildered brat from Earth when he'd entered the universe before. Now, Sitting Mountain Guest had been of great help to him in reaching this level. What does Teacher Sitting Mountain Guest want from me? Said Luo Feng. I thought Teacher would come and find me after the crisis of the sector beasts, but he never did. I wasn't in a rush, so I keep waiting, yet Teacher never called me. Luo Feng touched the space, as he could sense that there were dimming ripples in the space. The second he entered the original universe, he understood that the original universe had entered the final stage. It would be destroyed after a short while. After he had comprehended the destruction, he wouldn't suppress his power anymore. Instead, he would go and make a breakthrough to the level of a true god of void space. Then he would go transcend incarnation. However, Sitting Mountain Guest had never instructed him on what to do, or what he wanted. Luo Feng was willing to do anything for Sitting Mountain Guest, even if it meant risking his own life. Luo Feng stepped through space and arrived in front of a palace. There was a giant fountain in front of the palace, and there were fish swimming in the pond. An elder stood beside the pond, gazing at it all, looking very relaxed. Sitting Mountain Guest looked at the pond and said, "Here you come." "Yes, I have arrived now." Luo Feng walked toward him. Sitting Mountain Guest smiled and took a glance at him. I've been wondering who had the greater patience between the two of us. As it turns out, I'm the more patient one. Luo Feng smiled. It had nothing to do with patience. Teacher Sitting Mountain Guest had devoted so much energy to him, and he gave him a valuable like star tower. He had even been willing to sacrifice his own miniature universe to protect Luo Feng's miniature universe during the crisis of the sector beasts. It all showed how much Sitting Mountain Guest valued Luo Feng. How could Sitting Mountain Guest say that this was only about patience, like a child? Teacher, said Luo Feng. He couldn't help but ask. This universe era of the original universe is about to end. After I comprehend the whole process of destruction of the original universe, I won't suppress my power anymore. I'll go make a breakthrough and transcend incarnation. Teacher, if you want me to do anything for you, please just tell me now. Ha ha ha. Sitting Mountain Guest laughed. No need to rush things. There's still no need to rush. Luo Feng was dazed. Sitting Mountain Guest turned his hand, and a golden crystal appeared on his palm. He looked at the golden crystal for a long time, before giving it to Luo Feng. What is this, teacher? Luo Feng took a look at the golden crystal. It did not appear to be a valuable. Take it, said Sitting Mountain Guest. There's a virtual consciousness in it. A virtual consciousness? Luo Feng was confused. Though the last generation of Duandong River was dead, it had left a virtual consciousness to select its inheritors. The godly king of Jin had also left a virtual consciousness behind before he died. That virtual consciousness had all the memories of his original body, but it didn't have any combat power. It was only an artificial intelligence, a machine with many memories. That's my virtual consciousness, said Sitting Mountain Guest. I've told you that there's something I can't say out loud. I can't do it under the supreme laws. Luo Feng was dumbfounded. When you're transcending incarnation, Sitting Mountain Guest smiled. When you're transcending incarnation, you won't be restricted by supreme laws, and that is when my virtual consciousness can tell you everything. When you're transcending incarnation, bring out that golden crystal. My virtual consciousness will appear, and you'll learn everything. Luo Feng nodded, though he was pondering Sitting Mountain Guest meant. No wonder Sitting Mountain Guest wasn't in a rush. He could only tell Luo Feng everything while he was transcending incarnation. Go, said Sitting Mountain Guest. Prepare yourself. The original universe is the most perfect and vast universe. Its destruction contains endless mysteries. It'll benefit you in a way you can't even imagine. Comprehend it carefully. After that, you can go transcend incarnation. Don't be afraid of incarnation transcendence. It's not a trap. Instead, it's a good thing. Luo Feng was dazed. He bowed to show his gratefulness, then left. Within the solar system, a couple in white stood amid the void space, as they looked afar, at a massive celestial body that was glowing red. It was a gigantic red star. Even for a newborn star, Luo Feng whispered, the moment the original universe enters its final stage, this star will rapidly age and change. The process will be much faster than the evolution of a normal star. Very quickly, it will reach the stage of becoming a gigantic red star. Haven't you mentioned it before? Beside him, Shushin said with a laugh, now that it is entering its final stage, the origin of the original universe is absorbing energy from all life forms and celestial bodies. Naturally, it will decline faster. She sighed. 4 years beyond count, the moment a star reached the end of its life, for the sake of Earth, we would move to another star. Now, even Earth is gone. Luo Feng nodded gently. Not long ago, when this newborn star, which had just been shifted over, started to age rapidly. Numerous great beings from the pulse of Earth had decided to directly move their ancestral world, Earth, into the miniature universe. Upon obtaining Luo Feng's permission, the final decision was to move Earth into Luo Feng's miniature universe. Luo Feng would set aside a special area of space within his miniature universe for Earth, and this area would be a simulated environment of the solar system. Luo Feng let out another sigh as he whispered, "Another reincarnation era is coming to an end, just like that." "I can still recall the memories of our past," Shushin reminisced. "Back then, we were only 2 high school students in the headquarter city of Earth. No one would have expected the 2 of us to be able to live until today, to live to witness the day all the oceans dry up, and the rocks crumble to dust, and the entire universe is finally destroyed." Luo Feng lowered his head to look at his wife by his side. Husband and wife looked at one another and smiled. He turned back to look at that gigantic star, red and glowing. It was beautiful. So beautiful. Just like the sunset, during the Earth's era. After a long time. Luo Feng's brows twitched. Shushin looked confused as she asked, "What is it?" Then, as if also sensing something, she, too, looked into the distance. A figure could be seen appearing amidst the distant void space. Shortly after, the figure flew over to them. It was a universe master garbed in a colorful outer robe. Both her eyes were shining with light that was even more colorful than her outfit. She was one of the beast gods from within Ancestral God School. She bowed deferentially. "Honorable Milky Way Horde Leader," she said. "I am here by order of the 3 ancestral gods. The 3 ancestral gods wish to inform that the original universe will be destroyed 3 years from now. I trust that Milky Way Horde Leader still remembers the promise that was made back then. Please do make it a point to make your way to Ancestral God Palace before the time limit of 3 years is up, Milky Way Horde Leader." Luo Feng nodded. "Got it. I shall not impose any further." The female beast god bowed again, then quietly left. "Only left with 3 years." Shushin sighed softly. "Yes, 3 years." Luo Feng nodded. Shushin looked at Luo Feng. She knew that the moment this reincarnation era came to an end, it would not be long before Luo Feng would leave to try to achieve a breakthrough of reincarnation. How could she not worry? The time limit of the final 3 years brought about an increase in the speed at which the various races in the original universe moved about. In the face of the decline of the entire original universe, they had to relocate. 2 youths boarded a spaceship that was just about to take off for a faraway star traveler. The planet was the gathering point. "Even the original universe is going to be destroyed," said one. "I really wish I could bring more friends along with me. Unfortunately, each of us can only take 10 people." "Stop lamenting," said the other. "How big is the original universe? And how big can a miniature universe be? It is fated that 99.9999% of the people going up will not have the chance to move into his miniature universe. We are the talents accepted by the Milky Way Kingdom, which has allowed us to bring up to 10 people with us." It was a large-scale relocation. The criterion for the relocation of the human race followed this order. Firstly, all the sector lords, undying fighters, and those who were higher would be taken away. Next would be those talents who were chosen to be taken in by the 9 groups of major powers, such as Milky Way Kingdom, the Virtual Universe Company, the Huge Axe Dojo, and Universe Star Riverbank. A handful of talents from certain rounds of the War of Talents, who had not been accepted by any party, but had demonstrated outstanding performances, were also taken away. Then, based on how high or low their abilities were, they could bring family members and friends along with them. In fact, by comparison, the relocation of humans had been a much kinder process compared to that of the demons and the automaton race. This was because the human race had a very formidable true god, Luo Feng. The humans might have had 98 true gods, but the surface area of Luo Feng's miniature universe alone was 1,000 times larger than that of any other true god. He alone had the same volume as 1,000 true gods' miniature universes. Furthermore, Luo Feng and Teacher Origin would both achieve their breakthroughs and become true gods of void space by the end of this reincarnation era. By that time, their miniature universes would be able to accommodate even more life forms and great beings. This was why, regardless of anything, they were squeezing in as many life forms as they could. There was no need to worry about whether the miniature universes would be able to bear the weight of future multiplications in numbers of life forms. This was because things would get much easier the moment there was a breakthrough for the miniature universe. This was the reason why so many humans were involved in the relocation process. But, compared to the countless number of humans within the entire original universe, it was still only a minority who could be chosen. Within Luo Feng's miniature universe, at 9 Sectors Mountain, there were gurgling streams, rolling mountain, birds, and beasts all around. It was a beautiful place, and it was also where Luo Feng had remained in solitude while cultivating. Usually, this place would be managed by Morosa. From afar, a dense crowd of figures was flying over. This attracted Luo Feng's attention. He was conversing with his parents and wife. He turned to take a look. Over 1,000 figures descended. With great deference, they all bowed and greeted Milky Way ancestor. The 3,000-odd figures were all universe masters. The humans had a total of 1,222 universe masters. During this round of relocation, they had been scattered and were entering various miniature universes. As Luo Feng's miniature universe was the biggest of all, the number of universe masters choosing to come here would naturally be the most, especially those with the potential of becoming true gods. Almost all of these hopefuls had arrived in his miniature universe. The number of universe masters that the humans had entrusted to Luo Feng's miniature universe exceeded 900. In addition, there were also some other races from the Hong Alliance without any true gods in his universe. The Hong Alliance was the leader of the humans, so it was a given that their races should be taken care of, too. This was why there was also more than 3,000 universe masters from the Hong Alliance, who had made their way into Luo Feng's miniature universe. More than 900 universe masters from the human race had brought along with them a sea of humans, consisting of universe knights, undying fighters, sector lords, countless talented beings, countless accompanying populations, etc. All have arrived, said Luo Feng with a smile. Let's act according to the plan that we have come up with, then. Yes, ancestor, over 1,000 universe masters replied with deference. Then, one after another, they left at high speed. They dispersed all over the 100,000 plane surfaces, and started releasing the human beings they had brought along with them. The respective plane surfaces where these humans were released would serve as their future homes. Father, you have become an ancestor, Luo Hai said with great envy. In the future, commented Luo Ping, the humans will multiply, generation after generation. And they will all be multiplying within Father's universe. Father will soon be making his breakthrough. By then, our Milky Way Holy Land universe will become an eternal existence. In the future, generations of reincarnation eras will multiply here, and naturally, Father will be the ancestor. Luo Feng laughed upon hearing what his sons had to say. True enough. He and Teacher Origin could become true gods of void space anytime. This was why, internally, the humans were already calling out names like Teacher Origin Holy Land Universe, and Milky Way Holy Land Universe. Also, Luo Feng and Teacher Origin were being called Milky Way Ancestor, and Teacher Origin Ancestor, respectively. Again, Luo Feng turned around to take a look. From afar, 6 figures were flying over. Milky Way, said the six figures, all of them modest and reverent. Juhi, Blood Orchid, Rampage, you have come. Luo Feng smiled and nodded. The six that stood before him were all true gods from the first and second reincarnation eras. Soon, the great extermination would arrive. To the first reincarnation era, it would mean the arrival of doomsday. Those who could not transcend reincarnation would be annihilated. They were all aware that they did not have the ability to transcend reincarnation, so naturally, they would pin all their hopes on the other miniature universes. But capacity that a miniature universe could bear was limited, so who would be willing to accept outsiders? Only Luo Feng could easily hope for a breakthrough, because his miniature universe was the largest. Plus, he would soon become a true god of void space. Go on. Luo Feng said. All right. The six true gods were filled with gratitude. Luo Feng watched them leave. There were two reasons why he had chosen to take in these six true gods. The first reason was because of the friendships he had forged with them in the past. Furthermore, he was now at the level of the ultimate limit of a true god of void space. If he went on further comprehending the great extermination of the original universe, coupled with the constant interaction with Morosa, he believed it would not take him long to achieve a breakthrough to become an eternal true god. This was his second reason for taking them in. By then, there would be space to accommodate even more, so he figured it would not be a bad idea to take six more helpers under his wing. Once I become an eternal true god, Luo Feng said to himself, there are bound to be great beings becoming true gods in my miniature universe. The life forms residing within a miniature universe were not entirely devoid of chances to become true gods. Within the miniature universe of a true god, the highest possible level to be cultivated was a universe master. Within the miniature universe of a true god of void space, it was possible to cultivate a true god, but there was an extremely hefty price to pay. For every true god that was born, the true god of void space would have to partition a section of his miniature universe for the true god. This was something that very few true gods of void space were willing to do. However, once Luo Feng became an eternal true god, this would be a small price, which he was completely fine with bearing. Besides, it would not take long for his universe to recover. In the same way, the world of Jin was a miniature universe. That was something an eternal true god was capable of breeding. Luo Feng, garbed in white, stepped into the ancestral god palace. Milky Way, you are finally here. There is only a month left before the great extermination. The three ancestral gods were seated high above, and among them, the old ancestral god laughed. You are here, so our final mission can be considered completed. According to the instructions provided by the willpower of the origin, you just need to stay within Ancestral God Palace. That's all. The three of us will take our leave. The three ancestral gods smiled and bid Luo Feng farewell. Then the three of them left the original universe. There was not a single great being left within the entire ancestral god secret region. In fact, it had been quite some since the great beings of the entire original universe had started leaving successively. There were not many who had remained behind. The white-robed form of Luo Feng stood on the same spot and whispered to himself, the great extermination. This was not his original body. It was only a godly-powered avatar. The void space around Luo Feng was suddenly distorted. A natural wormhole appeared, and an intangible willpower enshrouded Luo Feng. Letting me in. Luo Feng understood the intention of the willpower of the origin. He had no fear, and he strode in right away. He felt a change in time and space, then found himself entering a vast and mysterious space. Within this space, there was nothing but countless spots of light, which were drifting about. Every spot was filled with strong power. Even the weaker ones were comparable to universe masters. Their power was intimidating to even someone like Luo Feng. Within this space, Luo Feng seemed so insignificant and small. Is this the place? Luo Feng remembered back, when he was first bestowed with an inherited technique, I am the universe. His consciousness had entered this area before. Back then, he had been touched by a spot of light, and the next thing he knew, he had acquired the inherited technique, I am the universe. At that time, his level of achievement was low, but now, things were different. He was on a much higher level, so his field of vision was wider. This particular space was none other than the land of the origin of the original universe. Out of those countless spots of light, only a handful contained information on inheritance. Most contained an inexhaustible power of the origin. Every light was like a vast world where an inexhaustible power existed. Luo Feng smiled. With a single stride, he could almost touch a light spot in a flash, but that light spot naturally drifted away, retreating to a distance of a few light years. It would not let Luo Feng touch it at all. Ha ha. Luo Feng laughed heartily. Then he sat down, cross-legged, directly on a particular spot. Suddenly, within this space of origin of the original universe, a colorful brilliance appeared. The blurry, colorful brilliance was like a rainbow covering Luo Feng. The moment Luo Feng was enshrouded, he suddenly felt as though his body had been extended. His willpower started to penetrate through the entire original universe. He penetrated through numerous star fields, universe secret regions, deserted star fields, and original stars, one after another. As small as the width of a grain of sand, as big as the vast law oceans. Rapidly, Luo Feng's willpower penetrated through everything. At that moment, Luo Feng felt as though he had become the original universe. How amazing! This is the structure of the original universe. Luo Feng was infatuated. He completely immersed himself in his surroundings. There were countless spots of light within the space of the origin of the original universe. These light spots could be divided into 100,000 different categories, which were all revolving around the same center. This was the structure of the beginning of the origin. The difference was, this was a much more meticulous structure than Luo Feng's beginning of the origin and 100,000 heavens. It was like beginning of the origin and 100,000 heavens becoming an endless space. So, said Luo Feng, the energy that the law ocean absorbs can even be stored in the universe in such a way. Luo Feng was in awe. A natural wormhole. Universe secret region. So, this is the energy of life. Although Luo Feng was unable to penetrate into the most basic life origin, just looking from inside to outside, from a microscopic to a macroscopic point of view, carefully observing the original universe once through, he was able to comprehend quite a lot about it. The benefits that he had learned about were quite shocking. Yet, comparatively speaking, I still feel that the final great extermination of the original universe will render the greatest amount of help. Luo Feng, seated cross-legged amidst the space of the origin of the original universe, was silently waiting for that moment to arrive. The original universe is about to be destroyed. This scene is extremely shocking. Previously, I have seen it with my own eyes. Amidst the void space that was filled with chaotic airflow, on a grey ship, rampaging devil god was telling everyone else about the previous cycle that he had personally witnessed. Beside him were many universe masters, universe knights, undying fighters, and even a portion of talents who were cultivated in key aspects. How much longer before the destruction of the original universe? We are amidst the void space. During the destruction of the original universe, will we be affected where we are? Quite a few humans within the hall were raising this question. Don't worry, said rampaging devil god, addressing the crowd in high spirits. We will not be affected at all where we are. Think back properly, back then. Loneliness was indeed torturous. Even if one was invincible, if he led a life of loneliness, then wouldn't he still be in agony? After he moved into Luo Feng's miniature universe, rampaging devil god had rediscovered the happiness of living that he had once lost. He was quite optimistic by nature. Numerous ships and palaces were suspended amidst the void space filled with chaotic airflow. Great beings from various races, who had made their way out of the original universe, were all waiting in silence, waiting for the moment when the great extermination would happen. Starting to destroy. The universe membrane wall is cracking apart. Great beings of the various races were looking at this scene with a mixture of excitement and sorrow. There were still many ordinary beings compared to the number of those who managed to get out of the original universe from their own race, who were not able to be relocated. Even Luo Feng's miniature universe, compared to the original universe, was pathetically small. It was destined that almost all the ordinary beings from the various races would be annihilated along with the destruction of the original universe. The destruction of the original universe had begun. Previously, the end of the world had still in the process of gradually occurring, but at that moment, within the entire space of origin, a formidable power was produced instantaneously. This power was crazily devouring everything. Even for the original universe, with its degree of vastness, all of its membrane walls were splitting apart at a crazy rate. Soon after, everything collapsed. Even the universe's secret regions and star fields had begun collapsing, black holes were disintegrating successively, mineral planets, declining stars, and even some of the planets on which life forms were residing, all of these started collapsing. The moment they started collapsing, it was almost immediate that they were crushed into a flow of countless particles. At this juncture, the origin also started to sharply reduce in size. The energy of every life form was being crazily transmitted to and absorbed by the origin. The countless ordinary life forms leading their daily lives, some babies who had just been born, some elders who were lying in hospitals, some young couples who were showing their love for one another, some enemies who were just fighting and killing one another, within a split second, all of them were annihilated. The inexhaustible energy of life was flowing into the core of the entire universe in a frenzy. Silence. Amid the void space of universe ocean, living souls from various other races were on board numerous ships and palaces, as they watched the scene of the destruction of the universe unfolding before them. They were all holding their breath out of shock. Even if they had heard descriptions of this scene beforehand, when they actually witnessed it with their own eyes, they were still in total shock. The flow of countless particles formed numerous, huge whirlpools. The powerful tearing force would have likely broken and shattered a miniature universe that entered it within an instant. That violence, that intensity, it made all the great beings hold their breath. The universe masters and true gods, with their ability to control time and space, were all transmitting the images of everything that was happening before them, sending the images incomparably long distances away. Everything became clearly visible. At such a close distance, everything became clearly visible. The shock was so intense that it sent shudders through the hearts of all the great beings. This is the destruction. Teacher Origin was shocked, too. When the destruction of the original universe began, the swallowing process formed such an infinitely strong tearing force that even a trace of it would have been enough to annihilate his entire being. Such a strong and ultimate form of destruction caused even Teacher Origin to shudder in fear. Yet the shock that everyone felt was nothing compared to what Luo Feng felt. These life forms from the various races were outside of the universe ocean, watching the events from afar. On the other hand, Luo Feng's willpower had penetrated into every corner of the original universe. He was like the original universe in its entirety. At the moment the destruction began, the feeling that struck him was overwhelmingly clear. Firstly, within the space of the origin, the beginning of the origin started revolving 10,000 times faster. The revolving speed was inconsistent, being fast at times and slow at other times, causing the countless spots of light, belonging to 100,000 different categories, to shatter and be absorbed away. This, in turn, caused the space of the origin to rapidly reduce in size. The entire origin exerted an incredible swallowing force over its surroundings. Swallow. It was doing its best to swallow. Swallowing all the living beings, all the corpses and carcasses, the entire original universe. Everything collapsed and was destroyed, transforming into countless flows of particles that revolved around and surged into the origin like crazy. All the most fundamental energy of life was completely absorbed back. To get such a massive original universe to be completely destroyed and swallowed in an extremely short period of time. The speed of those energies of life had exceeded 100 billion, even a trillion times light speed. Absolute rage. It was barbarous. When all of the energy of life had been absorbed into the origin of the original universe instantly glowed with dazzling brilliance. That brilliance was so eye-catching that the area it spread over far exceeded the size of the previous original universe. This dazzling brilliance had even spread out far enough to shine upon those watching from within their ships and palaces. So shocking. Beautiful. The living souls of various races were holding their collective breath. The original universe disappeared. Only the origin remained. There was power surging up in a circular pattern surrounding the origin, but no one dared to get close to it. Within the origin, garbed in a white robe, Luo Feng was sat cross-legged right in the middle of the whirlpool. The destruction of the original universe was fleeting and short-lived, yet unforgettable. That scene would be deeply imprinted on Luo Feng's soul. Morosa had shared with me how mysterious the destruction of the origin was, based on his own comprehension. Luo Feng was still shocked, nonetheless. But the destruction of the origin, no matter how mysterious, was, on the contrary, quite a transparent process. It was more like a soundless attack, during the destruction process. But the original universe represented the origin of life. The destruction of the origin of life was so much more rapid and violent. The origin of life contained various laws. To start with, there was life and death. There was also destruction. The destruction of the origin of life was entirely different from the elimination of the destruction of the origin. A short destruction was for rebirth, Luo Feng mumbled to himself. Its main purpose was to give life. Everything was for the sake of life. And the destruction of the sector beasts was the destruction of their roots. Numerous scenes of the destruction continued to flash through his mind. Morosa's comprehension of the mystery of destruction also flashed through his mind. Both were forms of destruction, but their cause were entirely different. Luo Feng was completely immersed in all these scenes in his mind. An intangible ripple of willpower swept through Luo Feng as understanding dawned upon him. Time to leave. Luo Feng, clothed in a white robe, was disintegrated and annihilated right away. This was merely his godly-powered avatar. At that moment, Luo Feng simply could not be bothered to be distracted by how he could get one godly-powered avatar to slowly fly back. It was more viable to simply disperse and disintegrate it. At Luo Feng's miniature universe, on one of the mountain peaks of 9 sectors mountains, Luo Feng sat cross-legged. He had comprehended for trillions of eras, comprehending the destruction of the origin, comprehending the origin of life. Everything was colliding with one another. The path of destruction. Luo Feng had gradually made his way down a particular path. Combining the destruction of the origin of life and the elimination of the destruction of the origin, he had arrived at a concluding comprehension for both, and everything was gradually taking form. The collision of two entirely different origins brought a great shock to Luo Feng. He needed to sort everything in order to straighten things out. He needed to comprehend an understanding of the situation that could justify all his doubts. If he could comprehend it all, he would be freed of doubts. Time passed. Years went by. I am here by Teacher Origin's order to ask, has Milky Way ancestor completed cultivation? Father God is still in the midst of cultivation, and must not be disturbed, Shimo replied in a most direct manner. Previously, Luo Feng and Teacher Origin had an agreement. After comprehending the process of destruction, they would make their breakthroughs to become true gods of void space together. Then they would try to transcend reincarnation. But now, Luo Feng was still immersed in the process of cultivation. Brother Shimo, Teacher is still in the midst of cultivation. Na-ku looked toward the faraway 9 sectors mountains. Young fellow, is it true that you just want to tell Teacher that you made a breakthrough to become a universe master? Shimo also cast his gaze over to 9 sectors mountain, where Luo Feng was still seated cross-legged. When Teacher has finished cultivating, he will surely learn about it. Na-ku laughed sheepishly. Time passed. The flowers and plants on 9 sectors mountain had gone through countless cycles of blooming and withering, and countless visitors had come looking for Luo Feng. Even sitting mountain guest had come once, yet Luo Feng remained immersed in comprehension. This time around, he was focusing all of his consciousness on comprehending, without a hint of distraction. Naturally, there was no way he could receive any guests. In the 360,000th era, after the destruction of the original universe, Shimo and Morosa were safeguarding 9 sectors mountains, forbidding any other great beings from disturbing Luo Feng. Seated on the mountain peak, Luo Feng suddenly opened his eyes. Shimo and Morosa turned at the same time to take a look. Then, in a flash, both of them arrived by Luo Feng's side. Father God, Shimo said in an agitated tone. Master, said Morosa, also very emotional. Luo Feng took a look at both of them and nodded with a smile as he said, Shimo, you can inform everything that I have now stopped cultivating. I suppose there are many who would like to meet me. Understood, Father God, Shimo replied right away. Then he disappeared in a flash. Morosa. Luo Feng looked to his side at his good-natured bodyguard. I suppose you have also been waiting a long time. Morosa merely returned a good-natured smile. Of course, he had waited a long time. He was an ace at dealing with loneliness, and the only opponent that could possibly match him was his master, Luo Feng. Naturally, he would look forward to some other activity for the sake of novelty, for instance, transcending reincarnation. Master, have you made your breakthrough? Morosa was quick to ask. It's a bit of a process, of course, Luo Feng teased. If no progress was made, even after I personally experienced the destruction of the original universe, then I would be a great, big fool. Before he had started comprehending this time, Luo Feng had already reached the ultimate limit of a true god of void space. For all universe masters, the usual practice was to create secret techniques at the 3rd to the 5th stages. Many universe masters would usually get stuck at the level of the 5th tier as the top. To be able to create a 6th tier secret technique, if one did not choose to take the godly power path, then the achievable level would only satisfy the requirements of becoming a true god. A true god of void space would commonly be around the 11th to 13th stage. If one could create a 14th stage secret technique, then that person could become an eternal true god. When Luo Feng had fought Sector Beast Mo He had been able to create a 12th stage as the top secret technique. After 6 trillion eras of cultivation, coupled with long-term communicating and interaction with Morosa, he had also been able to create a 13th stage as the top secret technique, which was the ultimate limit of a true god of void space. And this time, Luo Feng had spent 360,000 eras comprehending. Of course, he would have made tremendous progress. The destruction of the origin of life. The elimination of the destruction of the origin. This had allowed Luo Feng to comprehend the path of destruction. In terms of achievement, Luo Feng had taken a step up to the eternal true God level. This was because he had personally experienced the destruction of the original universe. After all, in the later stage, it would be exceedingly difficult for him to advance even the tiniest bit. Considering that fact that East Emperor Ancestor and Purple Moon Ancestor had never been able to break through in all this time, it was not difficult to acknowledge matter-of-factly. Feng. A figure flew over. It was none other than Shushin, who had come, because she knew that Luo Feng had finished comprehending. Luo Feng smiled as he went over to her. You are finally done cultivating. Even Sitting Mountain came looking for you at one point, Shushin told him. There's no need to rush, said Luo Feng. Right? Can the original universe be born now? It has already been born, Shushin answered with a nod of her head. The new reincarnation era has already begun. Luo Feng's eyes lit up. Come along. We shall go take a look. With one stride, Luo Feng brought Shushin along with him. Right away, he shifted their location to the peripheral region of his miniature universe. Then they made their way out. Luo Feng's miniature universe was not far away from the original universe. At first glance, Luo Feng's gaze penetrated the void space, and he could easily see the original universe. At that moment, the original universe was blurred, as it was surrounded by an endless airflow. This was its most primitive state, and it was now slowly and gradually breeding within its interior. Whether this reincarnation era's first life form could be born was still an uncertainty. Flourishing with prosperity to the limit before the Great Decline. Before him, Luo Feng saw a scene that was robust and full of vitality. He could not help whispering, previously, the original universe had multiplied its number to reach an extreme, so the number of those living within it also reached an ultimate limit. Naturally, its endurance also reached an extreme limit. Therefore, there was a rapid and violent great destruction. That destruction was for the sake of the new life of today. Regarding his own path of destruction, his comprehension was even clearer. Luo Feng was struck by a thought. Let's head back. Shushin looked at Luo Feng. Teacher Origin has arrived, Luo Feng said. One of Teacher Origin's godly-powered avatars arrived at Luo Feng's miniature universe. How's the comprehension coming along this time? Teacher Origin asked. I've made headway, Luo Feng said. It should be possible to cross over to the eternal level in one swift move. Eternal level. Teacher Origin was far too shocked to maintain his usual calm demeanor. Luo Feng nodded. The progress of my miniature universe is going to take some time. When it is almost done evolving, that will be the time when you should start to develop yours again. This way, both of us can successfully achieve our breakthroughs around the same time. All right, I'll head back and prepare. Teacher Origin nodded. Teacher Origin was aware that being able to gain a thorough comprehension this time was a benefit Luo Feng had gained from resolving the issue of the Sector Beast crisis. Relying on what he had comprehended, Luo Feng had managed to break through the key bottleneck and crossed levels to become an eternal true god. Plus, Luo Feng had once saved his life, so Teacher Origin did not harbor any jealousy toward Luo Feng. Rather, he felt awe and admiration for Luo Feng. After meeting Sitting Mountain Guest, Primal Chaos City Leader, and the rest of the company, Luo Feng started to work on his breakthrough. Rise. Standing within the space of the origin of the miniature universe, Luo Feng shouted out a command. Numerous space portals were successively emerging. Every space portal would appear within the space outside 100,000 heavens, without harming any of the plane surfaces. Endless chaotic airflow was gushing into these passageways, and the membrane walls of his miniature universe were starting to grow, spreading out and expanding rapidly. 1.1 billion light-years, 1.2 billion light-years. His miniature universe was undergoing constant outbursts of growth. As his miniature universe got bigger, the space occupied by 100,000 heavens was, on the contrary, reduced, while the amount of void space was increased. With more void space available, Luo Feng was naturally able to bring in more void space passageways. The endless chaotic airflow could then rush in to boost the evolution of his miniature universe. This pleasant occurrence of unrestrained supply to boost the evolution of his miniature universe would only happen when there were breakthroughs. Also, this supply was only for the growth of the miniature universe. The godly power that Luo Feng's body needed for development would have to be accumulated gradually via the absorption and transformation of godly power. 2.9 billion light-years, 3 billion light-years, 3.1 billion light-years. The miniature universe continued to expand. It quickly became much bigger than East Emperor Holy Land. Amidst the void space of Universe Ocean, a great many true gods and universe masters watched from afar. There were some from the human race, some from the Hong Alliance, and also some from other races. All of them were witnessing this grand occasion. It's too big. Exactly how big can it get, this Milky Way Holy Land universe? The diameter has already exceeded 5 billion light-years. It is much bigger than East Emperor Holy Land. Sitting Mountain Guest was also watching everything from afar. He laughed and whispered softly, "It is still too early." This time, Luo Feng was going to become an eternal true god in one swift move, so naturally, it was still too early to expect a final outcome. Expand. Expand like crazy. Finally, a diameter of 10 billion light-years was achieved, and within Milky Way Holy Land universe, Luo Feng's own body was also undergoing a change. Godly power. Luo Feng suddenly opened his mouth and sucked deeply. Within an instant, the godly power that had been swallowed and accumulated over a period of more than 6 trillion eras, which was thereafter transformed and stored as a reserve, came flowing over in a frenzied manner. During this period of more than 6 trillion eras, Luo Feng's godly body had long attained its perfect optimum state. If he were to transform into an ocean, its diameter could be as wide as 12 light-years. At the same time, it could store a tremendous amount of godly power. The breakthrough this time around had brought about the evolution of his godly power by 100 times. After accumulating for more than 6 trillion eras, his godly power reserve was consumed by more than 80%, all within an instant. This brought Luo Feng's body to reach perfection, but such perfection was only at the level of a true god of void space. After accumulating for such a long time, I still don't have enough. Once I become an eternal true god, my godly power will still be lacking a great deal. Luo Feng shook his head. Continue. This video will end here.